It feels like we're going through a interesting transitional moment in the world of dating and relationships.
Sure.
You talk about that a lot, the sort of the transition period we're going through with things like obviously birth control, but more recently things like artificial intelligence, which are really going to put a spanner in the proverbial works of dating and relationships.
Well, yeah, it's the same trap as porn for men. Like with the advent of virtual reality, robotics, and artificial intelligence, like if it's hard for men to tell the difference on some level between an actual sexual encounter and pornography now, can you imagine where it's going to be in like 5 years?
Gosh,
And it's going to be a significant trap.
imagine 20 years.
I mean, we'll be in a Blade Runner situation where you have holographic girlfriends who tell you exactly what you want to hear, and you can change their appearance at will. I mean, I don't know, but like that's not too far fetched.
Doesn't sound like the worst thing.
I mean, because people are unsatisfying, like people are disappointing, people are real, and that can be tough. Like all relationships require some degree of settling to some to some extent. And that's not very sexy. That's not very satisfying. And I think that when we're awash in optionality, or at least apparent optionality, it becomes harder and harder to settle for something that is less than perfect. That's something I talk about a lot also. It's like the meat market, the dating scene has changed so much. Like it used to be that you as a guy could do fairly well if you were the biggest fish in a relatively small pond,
Hmm.
right? There are no ponds anymore, dude. We're all swimming in one gigantic ocean.
Hmm.
The fact of the matter is that guy is competing for the girl next door with every other man on the planet. And every woman is competing for the most eligible bachelor in their little community with against every other woman on the planet. It's so easy for people to connect with each other through social media. And that's why, on some level, the best dating app in the world is not a dating app, it's Instagram.
Are you hopeful?
Sure, the game will go on. People will find a way to make it work. There's always opportunity. Maybe you know this, but there were more new millionaires created in 1929 in the stock market crash than in any other moment in American history. Like there is a way to thrive and succeed in almost any game and under almost any circumstances, but you have to be flexible and you have to be able to spot the opportunity, which often means that you have to buy when other people are selling, which is very difficult to do. In general, just in terms of like modern survival, the individual should be very cautious about moving in the direction of the majority. Like most people's lives are not awesome. So why move in the direction that most people are moving? If anything, that could be a reliable indicator that there might be something of interest in a different direction.
I'm thinking a lot about the video I saw on your YouTube channel called "How to Be a Man."
Mm. Yeah, that's one of the more popular ones, huh?
It's interesting because a lot of women come up to me that are raising young men, and they'll ask me about this particular subject. They'll say, because there's so many different performative influencers out there that are doing this sort of performative masculinity, what should I say to my son makes a good man in 2024? Because a lot of the things that sort of some narratives are suggesting make a good man are quite feminine traits typically, but those aren't necessarily always conducive with being attractive. So if I was to throw this to you and say, how do I be a man? What would your answer be?
I think there's lots of ways that you can be a man, right? And I don't think we should be bogged down in those performative aspects of masculinity.
Okay.
But the way I talk about it in the video is the way to be a man, fundamentally, is to have a spine and a pair of balls. And both things are important. And if you have those two things, then in my opinion, you're a man, no matter what you look like or how you act. And I think that kind of cuts to the heart of what has even historically been the core of masculinity. One of them is having a spine, which is the willingness to stand up. Like a spine is what actually allows you to stand erect. And a man generally needs to have something that he stands for because life is very, very difficult. In particular, the moment you stand up, you cast a shadow. which is a symbolic way of saying as soon as you stand for something, you will attract resistance to that something, no matter what it is you stand for. There's nothing that is so unambiguously right and good that it does not cast a shadow, except pure light. Let's put it that way. Only light does not cast a shadow, right? Mm-hmm. And we are not pure beings of light, right? So we need to be able to stand up and to rise above the field of undifferentiated humanity, because there's things that need to be done. There's loads that need to be lifted. There are fires that need to be put out. And the spine is what is also the conduit of the nerves that allow locomotion. It allows movement through reality, movement through the world. And that's generally what's necessary. There are so many problems. Like sometimes guys come to me and like, well, what should I do with my life? Just like fucking look around, man. Start with what is very obviously a problem in your life. Fix that. And once you fix that, then you can begin to broaden your scope with respect to the problems you tend to identify. Don't try to solve humanity's problems right now when your life is not in the state where it needs to be. Like focus on yourself first, put your own mask on before you assist others on the airplane. And then once you get things in order and things are generally working, you can begin to broaden your scope. And that's really important because one person who does that can benefit. Well, now they can benefit millions of people through the internet and social media. It's incredible. It's an opportunity that has never existed on the face of this planet. And they can do it from the privacy of their own living rooms. It's amazing. Mm. So that's important. But you also need a pair, which is to be able to have the willingness to deal with the consequences of standing up and casting a shadow. If you stand up, and the moment you meet with any kind of resistance or pushback or antagonism or criticism, which you absolutely will receive, you shouldn't have stood up to begin with. Like, that's just going to hurt. It's going to teach you the lesson that it's better not to stand up. It's better just to kind of blend in. It's better to push all that stuff down because look at what happens when you try. Well, yeah, you need to have some pushback to be able to deal with whatever comes your way as a consequence of standing up. Anybody who stands up will cast a shadow. And part of that shadow is the projected envy of others who, for whatever reason, as yet lack the courage to stand up themselves. It's so much easier to attack those for standing up than it is to stand up and run the risk of those attacks yourself. Right? And especially with the internet, it's so much easier to do that these days. You can hide your face, your name, and just take pot shots at anyone and everyone and anyone anonymously.
Is part of the reason men end up having these sort of midlife crises that we've talked about because they stop standing up and they stop having a pair of balls? Because I've heard you talk about selfishness and that men aren't selfish enough.
I think selfishness is a good thing to be, especially in relationships. At my stage of life, I think that 90% of successful relationships is selection. I'm not a big fan of compromise. To my mind, compromise is two people not getting what they want. I think it's better to be pretty selfish and explicit about your selfishness and to find someone who doesn't mind it, who can work with that or even enjoys it and thrives in those conditions.
But there's always going to be compromise, no? Something you'd rather.
I'd be cautious around compromise because generally it does create this sense of obligation and debt. Like I'm going to give up something that I want to make you happy. And so I'm going to expect you to sacrifice your happiness at some future date because of something I want to do.
But if you're not unwilling to compromise in terms of what you're looking for, you're probably going to be looking forever, no?
Well, there's other things that you can do. You can clarify your selection criteria.
Okay.
And generally, the fewer criteria you have, the more successful you will be. Like only go into the sexual marketplace wanting just a few things.
Okay, so no like, I'm not dating him, he's got a Velcro wallet.
Oh, like I mean, it's like some women will disqualify really decent male partners for a trifle. And they often do that when they're young and awash in optionality, because why not?
What's your selection criteria?
Okay. So I used to have much higher selection criteria.
Same.
And one of the mindsets that, it's going to sound weird, but one of the mindsets that I've worked against and has led to a lot more satisfying relationships is that I have tried not to go to the sexual marketplace looking for my equal or someone who can meet me at my level. In the past, I would go there and I'd be like, I want to talk about quantum mechanics and Shakespearean literature and go wilderness backpacking. And I also do these mindfulness retreats, and I'm interested in enlightenment and spiritual discipline. And I want a woman who's interested in all of those things. And I also want to be attracted to her too. So it's like, and is expensive. Every time you say and, probabilistically, you're less likely to get what you want, which redounds to actual expenses in terms of time, money, opportunity in the sexual marketplace. So you should be very cautious about what you say and to. And I remember I was having some trouble meeting women that met all of my extrapolated criteria. And I still had, I'm sure, plenty of unconscious criteria that I was exacting on them as well. And I brought this to a mentor, and he listened patiently to me. And he basically, when I was done, said, Orion, why the fuck would you want to talk to a woman about quantum mechanics? Like, you do not need a woman to do that. Like, if you really want to do that, if that's something that's really important to you, I guess that's your right. But you just need someone who's interested in quantum mechanics to do that with. That could be a man. It doesn't have to be a woman. And it was like, ooh, that's right. And so what I did is I looked at all the things that I was going to the sexual marketplace to find, and I thought, could I get this need met in any other kind of relationship with any other person on the planet besides a woman in a sexual relationship? And the vast majority of those things I could say yes to. And so I made a commitment to get those needs met elsewhere, because it's, as a man, it's generally easier and cheaper to get those needs met elsewhere than in sexual relationships with women. And that was also great because it also forced me to cultivate and maintain my non-sexual relationships, both with men and women, right? Which put less pressure on my female partner to be everything and anything to me. So, you know, what was left was all of the things that either wouldn't or couldn't get met in any other kind of relationship, which first and foremost was sex. It's just how it is. As a straight guy, that's what I would go for in a sexual relationship. The second criteria is that she needed to be sufficiently attractive to me, in the sense that I knew that if I were to walk into most rooms and want secretly to be with that guy's girl, that it wasn't going to work with the woman that I was with. That's not very virtuous to admit, but it's probably better for me to acknowledge that and work with that than to pretend that that doesn't exist, because it's probably not going to go away. So there needed to be lots of sex. She needed to be sufficiently attractive to me. And I like that, let's say, soft femininity that comes out of women in the context of a close, intimate relationship that you can't get from a platonic or a professional female friend or colleague. So those are the three things that I went looking for, with the fourth criteria that she couldn't be so disagreeable that it was going to create more problems than are solved by these three criteria being met. And this was great because I knew what I was going to a relationship for. I wasn't bringing a lot of need or expectation. It was harder for me to be disappointed by women. And it also allowed me to entertain the possibility of a satisfying relationship with lots of different kinds of women. Like, outside of those criteria, she could be anyone from any kind of walk of life. And that's great because you kind of want to have your applicant pool as wide as possible in the initial phases of a selection process.
Yeah, I can relate in many ways. I think at my earlier years, I thought I wanted to date another entrepreneur, but I think that would have absolutely hell. When I say an entrepreneur, someone that was like just obsessed with their career, but then where does that leave space for a relationship? And also I thought I wanted to date someone that believed the things I believed. I'm quite logical. I need evidence to believe the things I believed. Turns out I found the opposite, and it's the best thing ever, because she basically is everything I'm not. And I find that really curious. So she's very spiritual. She takes life at a certain pace. She's very in tune with herself. She's got a shrine at home, which she's got like her crystals and stuff on it. And I don't believe any of those things. But the good part is that she doesn't care if I believe it. And that's what makes it work. Because I can just listen. I can look over. And there's no pressure to do some chakra meditation or whatever. And that's why it works.
That's great. And it sounds like you've really learned a lot of lessons.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and one of the things that's really important is if you want to love, you have to accept your partner.
Yeah.
Like wanting them to be better, whatever that means, is kind of a subtle form of disrespect because it's basically communicating that you're not good enough as you are.
Yeah.
So like, and people have their preferences. Some things are so much easier to accept than others, and that will differ from person to person. So if for whatever reason you're dealing with somebody who you honestly don't feel like you can accept, like if this never changed, it would degrade your capacity to participate enthusiastically in this relationship, just find somebody else to have a relationship with.
Don't fuck them up by trying to change them.
No, because part of the fun of loving is that they're different and that you do kind of eventually want to create this safe context for the people to be themselves because you can only love to the depth of your knowledge. You can only love to the depth of your understanding, which is why, to bring it back around, it's important to slowly disappoint your partner from the marketing and the attractiveness that initially bring people out on the date. So you're not just performing all the time. You do need to do that slowly and to actually show the other person who you are so you can be seen, which increases the likelihood that you can be loved. You cannot love something that you do not understand. That's just superstition.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.